Welcome to Peanuts Podcast, Bible Stories for Children. The Jesus Storybook Bible, written by Sally Lloyd-Jones, read by Peyton Nutt.
So, today, if you haven't heard the other one, we're gonna jump into the second story. This one is called The Terrible Lie. And it's about Adam and Eve lose everything from Genesis 3. And so, let's begin. Adam and Eve lived happily together in their beautiful new home, and everything was perfect. For a while, God had a horrible enemy. His name was Satan. Satan had once been the most beautiful angel, but he didn't want to be just an angel. He wanted to be God. He grew proud and evil and full of hate. And God had to send him out of heaven.
Get out.
Satan was seething with anger and looking for a way to hurt God. He wanted to stop God's plan. Stop this love story. Right there. So he disguised himself as a snake and waited in the garden. Now, God had given Adam and Eve only one rule. Don't eat the fruit on that tree, God told them, because if you do, you'll think you know everything. You'll stop trusting me. Then death and sadness and tears will come. You see, God knew if they ate the fruit, they would think they didn't need him, and they would try to make themselves happy without him. But God knew there was no such thing as happiness without him, and life without him wouldn't be life at all. As soon the snake saw his chance, he slithered silently up to Eve. "Does God really love you?" the serpent whispered. "If he does, won't he let you eat that nice, juicy, delicious fruit? Poor you. Perhaps God doesn't want you to be happy." The snake's words hissed into her ears and sunk down deep into her heart like poison. "Does God love me?" Eve wondered. Suddenly, she didn't know anymore. "Trust me," the serpent whispered. "You don't need God. One small taste, and that's all. You'll be happier than you could ever dream." Eve picked the fruit and ate some. And Adam ate some too. And a terrible lie came into the world. It would never leave. It would live on in every human heart, whispering every one of God's children, "God doesn't love me." It wasn't a dream. It was a nightmare. A dove flew from Adam's hand. A deer darted in a thicket. It was as if they were frightened by something. A chill was in the air. Something strange was happening. They'd always been naked, but now they felt naked and wrong. They didn't want anybody to see them, so they hid. Later that evening, God was taking his walk. He called to them, "Children?" Usually Adam and Eve loved to hear God's voice and would run to him, but this time they ran away from him and hid in the shadows. "Where are you?" God called. "Hiding," Adam said. "We're afraid of you." "Did you eat the fruit I told you not to eat?" God asked them. Adam said, "Eve made me do it." "What have you done?" God asked. Eve said, "The serpent made me do it." A terrible pain came into God's heart. His children hadn't just broken one rule. They had broken God's heart. They had broken their wonderful relationship with him. And now he knew everything else would break. God's creation would start to unravel and come undone and go wrong. From now on, everything would die, even though it was supposed to last forever. You see, sin had come into God's perfect world, and it would never leave. God's children would always be running away from him and hiding in the dark. Their hearts would break now and never work properly again. God couldn't let his children live forever, not in such pain, not without him. There was only one way to protect them. "You have to leave the garden now," God told his children, his eyes filling with tears. "This is no longer your true home. It's not the place for you anymore." But before they left the garden, God made clothes for his children to cover them. He gently clothed them and then sent them on a long, long journey out of the garden, out of their home. Well, in another story, it would be all over, and that would have been the end. Dun, dun, dun.
Well, that's a tough story.
It's not over.
Oh.
But not in this story.
Got me.
Can't you tell it said, well, in another story?
Yeah, but it said the end. I got mixed up. Continue.
But not in this story. God loved his children too much to let the story end there. Even though he knew he would suffer, God had a plan, a magnificent dream. One day, he would get his children back. One day, he would make the world their perfect home again. And one day, he would wipe away every tear from their eyes. You see, no matter what, in spite of everything, God would love his children with never stopping, never giving up, unbreaking, always and forever love. Forever. And though they would forget him and run from him, deep in their hearts, God's children would miss him always and long for him. Lost children yearning for their home. Before they left the garden, God whispered a promise to Adam and Eve. "It will not always be so. I will come to rescue you. When I do, I'm going to battle against the snake and get rid of sin in the dark and the sadness and let you in here. I'm coming back for you." He would, and he would. One day, God himself would come.
Now the story's over.
Yes, now it is.
Okay, well, that's a tough story. There was a tough lesson in there, right? And it makes me think about...
By the way, the snake is representing Satan, and Satan is representing sin. And
That's
sin is representing sin.
Sin is representing when we miss the mark, right? So again, like we talked about in the introduction episode, sin can be small. Sin can be eating a piece of candy when mom says no candy, right? Or sin can be big. Sin could be
Lies.
punching someone in the face.
Ooh.
Yeah.
one time when you were a kid, there was this guy who was really mean, and you just like punched him in the face.
Well,
He
that was
so
self-defense.
scared of you. It wasn't a sin. She was self-defensing herself because that guy was just like so mean.
Yeah, we shouldn't punch people, but if someone tries to hurt you, you got to defend yourself. Anyway, so give me an example in your life of when Satan, let's call him the enemy, has tempted you to do something and you did it.
I guess with the bathroom at the hockey rink.
And why did you...
Which was in like the first episode.
Right. You went into the bathroom because some older girls...
Well, one of my friends.
Yeah, a friend said, hey, come with me. And in your heart, did you know that you should have told me? Or...
I don't think so. I mean...
Okay, that's
I
not
had forgotten, but...
Well, that's not a good example.
Yeah.
Because that's maybe you being a kid and learning. But is there another example? Maybe like when you're getting ready for bed and I say, Peyton, go brush your teeth. And you maybe get tempted to do some other things. What do you think that's about?
Lollygagging.
Yeah. Is that maybe, and this is a small sin, but is that maybe like the enemy whispering in your ear, don't listen to your mom, stay up longer?
It's myself saying to me, oh, I need to do this. Oh, I need to do this. Or,
so that I can avoid going to bed. That's the tricky thing about the enemy. It's not, if a snake came up to us in this room right now and was like, hey, do this bad thing, we'd be like, get out of here. But
you'd probably stomp on its head or grab a bowl and smash it
maybe
on its head.
But the enemy's voice sounds like our own.
Really?
The enemy's voice sounds like our own in our head that tells us,
that's creepy.
You don't need to listen to your mom. You don't need to do what God would want you to do. Do this other thing because this is going to make you happy.
That's the good thing about Christians.
What?
They know that if Satan says in their head, like what you just said, God might not love you. Christians would be like, God loves me.
Yeah.
Get out of here, stupid snake.
It's easy to forget, though. And like I said, the enemy is very tricky. And the enemy can sometimes talk to us in these small, tiny ways, like telling us we're not good enough, telling us that we shouldn't play a sport because we're afraid of not being good, telling us that we shouldn't sing because maybe our voice isn't good. The enemy wants us to feel bad about ourselves. The enemy wants us to feel small. He
wants us to be in his kingdom.
Yeah, the enemy doesn't...
And actually a couple people are like, when God speaks to them, they're like, get out of here, God. We're on Satan's side.
Some people
Your
do.
sin.
Some people do, yeah. But God's voice. So typically how I figure out if God is speaking to me or if the enemy is speaking to me is usually, because again, it all happens in our head, right? The voice in our head.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the enemy's voice is really loud and really chaotic and really like, do this thing because it's going to bring you happiness right now. And God's voice is usually soft and gentle and a whisper. And it's more like an invitation.
Like, hey, come on. You can do this.
It's encouraging. It's the voice that tells you, yes, you can. The enemy's voice says,
like,
no, you can't.
Like one time, also sometimes Satan's wrong. Like, one time, there's a game. It's kind of like hot potato. And I was in the final round. It was only me and a third grader. I'm a second grader, and I'm only about 8. And he was like, I think he's 8, but I don't know. His name's Asher.
Okay.
And it's called Pass the Pumpkin. So it's basically like hot potato, except it's rhythm. So, and I was telling myself, and the other boys were so sure Asher was going to win because he's older and because I'm a girl. And I was like, I feel like I'm going to lose. And then suddenly Asher was the last one with it, and he was out, and I had won. So sometimes Satan's wrong. Like, maybe there was too much going around, and God said, I will make Satan be wrong. I will make the boys' prediction be wrong. I will make Peyton win.
Mm-hmm.
This is a long episode.
Well, this is an important topic.
True.
This is a super important topic. Because being able to know when the enemy is speaking to you or when God is speaking to you is one of the most important things.
I think it was actually like a little bit too much going around that I couldn't hear God's soft whisper.
That can happen.
Because there was lots of noise outside of my mind,
Yeah.
and I couldn't hear the small whisper.
Exactly.
So maybe that's what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes we have to quiet the noise, and we have to make the choice to say, everything quiet, only God's voice, and allow that whisper to come forward. That's beautiful. Okay. Anything else you want to say about this one?
This is probably the longest episode yet.
What's
so
the
far.
next story?
Let me see.
Tune in next time for
A new beginning.
a new beginning.